Dear Mr. Chair, Mr. Minister, dear colleagues, well, I'm really happy and honored to be here in this place and open this second day of Global Anti-Corruption and Integrity Forum. First of all, I would like to emphasize that corruption is an existential threat to Ukraine. Well, that is like to any country in the world, corruption is bad. It's written in economy, it influences and impacts GDP level, it matters in terms of reputation, it's about rule of law, but for Ukraine is under special circumstances. Corruption is existential threat. Why is that? First of all, I don't know to what extent you know, but still it's important. Ukraine sends all its taxpayers' money to fight the war with Russia, to defend our country. So actually we do not have our own money to finance non-military needs. That's why our country, welfare system, my salary, educational system, healthcare, whatever, is financed by our international partners, including France. Given the circumstances, we need to run extra mile. We need to be transparent to the maximum extent possible to earn the trust of our partners. We could not afford, not even to have a perception that even small portion of transfers we get is stolen or somehow used by corrupted officials. This is the first. The second matter, which is even more important and even more existential, is that corruption was our strategic weakness used by Russians. When Russia attacked Ukraine in 2014 by using methods of hybrid war, well, still historians will have a closer look at what happened in Crimea, but why Russia was so successful at 2014 and 2015, why there was no significant military resistance to the fight and to the occupation of Crimea. One of the major factors played there was actually corruption. So at that time, corruption was a strategic weakness for Ukraine in terms of our territorial integrity and protection of our country. The third reason why we are in a unique situation and why corruption is of paramount danger to our country is actually our way forward. We understand that financing of Ukraine and our needs from our partners has some deadlines. So we do not expect to be provided with financial assistance with no limits going forward. We know that we will have to return back our economy to previous levels. We understand that private sector would need to keep up, and we desperately need new investors coming to Ukraine, and even existing investors to invest money in our economy to increase production and increase the number of jobs we have in Ukraine. From that perspective, reputation matters. From that perspective, we need to have a system showing investors that Ukraine protects and complies with requirements of the rule of law, and that we have the best and the most efficient system of anti-corruption bodies in Ukraine. I would humbly say that probably we are on a way to get that, to establish that framework, and probably we will be proud of what we achieved, what we would achieve, and what we achieved so far, given the unique situation of by making anti-corruption reforms, by improving our system to comply with best international standards during the war. So that is kind of major outlook where we stand, why it's important to us, and why we need your help to share your lessons, to share your practices, and to help us to be better and to be among the leading countries with leading practices already implemented in Ukraine. Our road to the situation we have right now is pretty much long. So our journey to meet best international standards and to become a participant to the working group on bribery and our way to future accession to convention and probably OECD started in 2009, when the first framework for creation of anti-corruption agencies and first legislation aimed at fighting corruption was adopted by the parliament. And at that time, Minister of Justice was actually the champion of the reform, since no anti-corruption agencies existed in Ukraine at that time. But the progress was slow. The major reforms and major rush to get reforms implemented happened after the Revolution of Dignity, when Ukraine received a significant push from civil society, from our citizens, to get reforms actually happen and implemented. After that, things became better. Ukraine created an anti-corruption framework, including laws, providing the utmost transparency for civil servants and politicians acting in Ukraine. I do not see and do not know many countries with such a transparency already implemented on the legislation level and on the level of implementation. Each and every person in Ukraine could learn what are my incomes, assets, my incomes and assets and transactions of all my family, and not only my or like top politicians in the country or members of parliament, but also other hundreds of thousands of people in Ukraine. So given the number of people submitting asset declarations and being transparent in their activity, we are probably one of the most advanced countries in terms of transparency of the asset declaration system. We also created a unique system of anti-corruption institutions in Ukraine. That starts from National Anti-Corruption Prevention Agency, part of the government, but completely independent. We also created National Anti-Corruption Bureau of Ukraine, investigative body, investigating anti-corruption crimes, and also crimes posing significant damage to the state. We also created specialized anti-corruption prosecution office, an independent branch of the prosecution system, part of the judiciary, and all those agencies are created with the assistance of our international partners. All managers, all the heads of those agencies are selected by selection commissions with a decisive vote of representatives from international organizations. The same applies to our judicial bodies. Right now in Ukraine, all major judicial bodies, be that High Justice Council, High Qualification Commission of Justice, and even Commission to select and veto candidates to the Constitutional Court of Ukraine. Everywhere we have selection commissions comprised of representatives of international organizations and local Ukrainian representatives delegated by Ukrainian authorities with a decisive vote of international organizations. So the road we passed so far looks quite difficult and challenging. We implemented most innovative techniques we saw according to the advice of our international partners. But it looks like we are pretty successful in terms of implementation of that advice. We understand that the road ahead is pretty much difficult. We became participants to the working group on bribery, hope that we will get access to that working group as members soon enough, since we were granted a 2-year period to implement necessary reforms, and we have less than a year to implement what remained, a couple of laws to be adopted. But still, I hope that everything's going to be okay with what we have in Ukraine, with the situation we have. I do not have any doubt that we will implement everything what is necessary to become a full-scale member of OECD, Anti-Bribery Convention, Working Group on Bribery. And of course, our EU accession process is going to be successful, but with only one condition, that the war will end successfully. So what I have right now is just, please send a message to your governments. It's important to help Ukraine. It's important to work together. We deliver on our commitments. We do what is needed to be a transparent, reliable partner of all of you. And we also need your support. Together, we will ensure that the global peace, the rule-based order will be in place. Together, we will ensure that international law prevails and really matters. And together, we will show that there could be a pretty much good example of a weaker country, smaller country, defending itself with the help of international community, reconstructing itself, and showing a good example that anti-corruption and rule of law actually work. Thank you for that. Thank you for organizers. Thanks for Secretariat of the Working Group on Bribery. We really appreciate the job you do, the work you do, assessments you perform. That really helps. We see the benchmarks, understand the move forward, understand our roadmap, and we fight on all fronts, not only the military one, not only with Russians, but internally as well. It's a struggle to reform the country during the war. It's a challenge. We never had such a significant challenge, but I think everything's going to be fine. Thanks again, and thanks, partner.